Welcome to Sacred Texts Summarized, where we distill the timeless wisdom of some of humanity's most profound spiritual and philosophical classics. Here, we do more than just read ancient words. We dive into the living current of their teachings, exploring how they have guided seekers for centuries, and how they can help us navigate the complexities of modern life with greater clarity, compassion, and purpose. Today, we turn our gaze to the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, a slender yet extraordinary treatise composed roughly 2 millennia ago. This text is more than just a set of yoga instructions, far more. It is a master key to understanding the architecture of the human mind and the pathway to inner freedom. It offers a luminous blueprint for calming mental turbulence, understanding the nature of reality, and ultimately realizing our deepest potential as human beings. Though many of us may associate yoga primarily with physical postures, Patanjali's vision of yoga is a complete psycho-spiritual science encompassing ethics, philosophy, meditation, and much more. The central inquiry that permeates this text, what does it mean to be free, is both ancient and evergreen. In a world brimming with distractions, anxieties, and endless ambitions, such a question cuts right to the heart of what matters. Patanjali invites us to encounter a freedom not rooted in external circumstances, but in the very structure of our awareness. We will ask ourselves how these profound insights can serve as a compass for modern life. Let's begin this journey with open hearts and keen minds. Before we enter the text, let us first understand the figure behind it, or perhaps the tradition and wisdom he represents. Patanjali's identity is, in many ways, enigmatic. Traditional accounts vary widely. Some lineages speak of Patanjali as a single sage, a brilliant philosopher who distilled the teachings of earlier yogis into concise aphorisms. Others consider Patanjali less as an individual historical person and more as a symbolic or composite figure, an embodiment of the collective wisdom that had evolved over centuries. There are also mythic narratives linking Patanjali to the serpent god Adishesha, who in Hindu cosmology is depicted as the endless serpent upon which the god Vishnu reclines. In these legends, Patanjali is understood as a divine incarnation whose teachings are infused with cosmic insight. From a scholarly perspective, the composition of the Yoga Sutras is often placed between 200 BCE and 400 CE, though these dates are not definite. The text arose during a time of vibrant philosophical inquiry in ancient India. The era saw the formation and refinement of various darshanas, philosophical systems, the growth of Buddhism and Jainism, and the maturing of Vedic and Upanishadic thought. The Yoga Sutras appear as a distillation and codification of older yogic traditions, oral teachings passed from teacher to student, evolving in dialogue with other philosophical frameworks, especially Samkhya. Samkhya philosophy, which greatly influenced Patanjali, posits a dualistic metaphysics, 2 fundamental principles, Purusha, pure consciousness, and Prakriti, material nature, encompassing mind, matter, and energy. Drawing from Samkhya's model of reality, the Yoga Sutras offers a practical method for disentangling consciousness from the limiting conditions of the world, ultimately achieving liberation, Kaivalya. This lineage grapples with profound questions. What is the root cause of human suffering? How can we transcend the limitations of a restless mind? What practices lead to abiding peace and realization of the true self? Though these queries arose in a distant time and place, they resonate in our modern era, where stress, anxiety, and existential confusion remain prevalent. Patanjali's approach is psychological and spiritual at once, providing tools not just for monastics or hermits, but potentially for anyone, anywhere, eager to understand the workings of their own mind and cultivate inner freedom. As we engage with the text, we must remember that the Yoga Sutras are not standalone. They are situated within a vast tapestry of wisdom traditions, the Vedas, Upanishads, epics, like the Mahabharata and Ramayana, and the concurrent philosophical systems of Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Mimamsa, Vedanta, Buddhism, and Jain thought. Understanding the Yoga Sutras involves appreciating how Patanjali synthesized ethical guidelines, meditational practices, and philosophical insights into a coherent, concise masterpiece. Above all, the Yoga Sutras is both theoretical and experiential. It invites seekers to test its propositions in the laboratory of their own minds. Patanjali's vision is not merely to inform the intellect, but to transform the practitioner's inner life. Part 1. Samadhi Pada, the nature of the mind and the aim of yoga. The Yoga Sutras are traditionally divided into 4 chapters, padas. 1. Samadhi, Pada, concentration and the aims of yoga. 2. Sadhana Pada, the practice and disciplines. 3. Vibhuti Pada, extraordinary abilities and deeper explorations of mind. 4. Kaivalya Pada, liberation and ultimate freedom. Patanjali begins with a succinct and potent phrase, Atha Yoganushasanam. Now, the teaching of yoga begins. The word now, Atha, is charged with significance. It implies a readiness, a certain maturity in the seeker. This is not a casual curiosity, but a profound turning point. It signals that the student has arrived at a moment of sincere aspiration, perhaps after having tried worldly pursuits and found them wanting. The teaching unfolds when the student's heart and mind are ripe for transformation. Patanjali's second sutra is the cornerstone of the entire text. Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. Here, 3 key terms appear. Yoga, not just posture practice, but the state of union or integration. Chitta, the field of consciousness encompassing mind, intellect, and ego sense. Vritti, the whirlings, modifications or fluctuations, mental patterns that disturb the stillness of consciousness. Patanjali defines yoga not as something we do, but as a state that arises when mental agitation subsides. It is like the stillness of a lake's surface that, unruffled, can reflect the moon flawlessly. When the mind is still, it becomes a mirror to reality, allowing us to see our true nature, the Purusha, beyond the distortions of thought, memory, and imagination. The 5 types of mental fluctuations. Vrittis. Patanjali enumerates 5 categories of mental modifications. 1. Pramana, correct knowledge, obtained through direct perception, pratyaksha, logical inference, anumana, and authoritative testimony, agama. While pramana is considered correct, it can still limit us if we cling to concepts rather than directly experiencing reality. 2. Vipariyaya, misconception. Mistaking one thing for another, like seeing a rope as a snake in the twilight. These cognitive errors cause fear, confusion, and suffering. 3. Vikalpa, imagination, fantasy. Abstract thought or language constructs with no direct object in reality, empty mental fabrications. 4. Nidra, sleep. The fluctuation of consciousness in deep sleep, where no mental content is consciously registered. While restful, it's still a modification of chitta. 5. Smriti, memory. Impressions from past experiences that color our current perceptions and reactions. None of these categories are inherently evil. They are simply the fabric of mental activity. The problem arises when we identify with these fluctuations rather than the witnessing awareness beneath them. Abhyasa and Vairagya, the twin pillars of practice. To still the mind, Patanjali prescribes 2 fundamental approaches. Abhyasa, persistent practice. consistent, long-term effort to focus the mind and cultivate steadiness. Abhyasa implies discipline, patience, and dedication. Vairagya, non-attachment. A conscious process of letting go of desires, fears, outcomes, and identifications. Vairagya tempers our practice with equanimity, ensuring we do not merely shift from one attachment to another. Consider modern life. We hustle to achieve goals, accumulate possessions, or forge identities on social media. Yet these pursuits often bring frustration or disappointment. Vairagya suggests not that we must renounce the world outwardly, but that we should understand the nature of impermanence, letting go of clinging. By pairing effort, abhyasa, with detachment, vairagya, we create space for the mind to rest. When the mind becomes still, according to Patanjali, the true self, Purusha, shines forth. This realization is not a mental concept, but a direct experience of clarity, peace, and freedom. Part 2. Sadhanapada, the practical path, the 8 limbs of yoga. If the first chapter introduces the goal and the fundamental principles, the second chapter, Sadhanapada, explains the means. Here, Patanjali lays out the methodology for transforming mind and life, a practical framework known as the eightfold path or Ashtanga Yoga. Before introducing the 8 limbs, Patanjali prepares the ground by discussing the root causes of suffering and the role of disciplined practice. He acknowledges that the human condition is shaped by the kleshas, afflictions or impurities in the mind. The principal kleshas are ignorance, avidya, ego, asmita, attachment to pleasure, raga, aversion to pain, dvesha, and fear of death, abhinivesha. These kleshas perpetuate the cycle of suffering and keep us from recognizing our true nature. Through yoga practice, we aim to reduce and eventually transcend these afflictions. The 8 limbs, Ashtanga Yoga. 1. Yamas, ethical restraints. These are universal moral principles guiding our interactions with others and the world. They are ahimsa, non-violence, compassion towards all beings, including oneself. Beyond physical harm, it includes not using words or thoughts as weapons. Satya, truthfulness. Aligning one's speech, thought, and actions with what is real and honest. Truthfulness fosters trust and integrity. Asteya, non-stealing. Respecting others' rights, possessions, and time. It extends to subtle forms of theft like claiming credit for someone else's work or hoarding resources. Brahmacharya, right use of energy. Often associated with celibacy, but more broadly, it means using energy wisely and not squandering it in overindulgence, distraction, or compulsive behavior. Aparigraha, non-possessiveness. Letting go of greed and the impulse to accumulate. It encourages gratitude and openness, freeing us from the anxiety of wanting more. 2. Niyamas, personal disciplines. These guide our inner life and self-relationship. Shaucha, purity, cleanliness, maintaining purity in body, mind, environment, and relationships. It includes mental hygiene, keeping our thoughts as clear as possible. Santosha, contentment, finding satisfaction in what is, rather than perpetually longing for what is not. Santosha does not mean complacency, but a peaceful acceptance of the present. Tapas, discipline, heat. Cultivating determination and willpower. Tapas means undergoing the transformative heat of challenges to foster growth. Svadhyaya, self-study. Reflecting on one's thoughts, motivations, and tendencies. It also includes studying sacred texts and learning from teachers. Ishvarapranihana, surrender to the divine. Trusting in a higher intelligence or universal principle. This is not necessarily religious. It can mean aligning with the natural order or purpose that transcends the ego's limited perspective. 3. Asana, physical posture. In modern yoga culture, asana tends to dominate, but Patanjali mentions it succinctly. He defines it as a posture that is steady and comfortable, sthira sukham asanam. The ultimate purpose of asana is to create a stable, healthy body, capable of sitting for meditation without pain or distraction. It was never the central aim of yoga practice in the ancient tradition. Rather, it serves as a support for deeper practices. 4. Pranayama. Breath regulation. The breath is the bridge between body and mind. By consciously regulating the breath, we influence our emotional and mental states. Pranayama techniques calm the nervous system, enhance concentration, and prepare us for meditation. They help in cultivating prana, life force, sustaining mental clarity. 5. Pratyahara, withdrawal of the senses. Pratyahara is often misunderstood. It's not about rejecting the world, but refining our attention. Usually, our senses pull us outward. Sights, sounds, and impressions flood our mind. In Pratyahara, we train ourselves to remain centered regardless of external stimuli, learning not to be swayed by every passing sensation. It's a crucial turning inward. 6. Dharana, concentration. Once we have turned inward, we focus the mind on a single object, maybe a mantra, a visual point, or even the breath. The mind's habit is to wander. Dharana is the training ground where we learn to hold attention steadily in one place. 7. Dhyana, meditation. With sustained concentration, the mind flows continuously toward the object without distraction. This state is meditation. In dhyana, the practitioner experiences an unbroken awareness, a seamless flow of attention. Distinctions between subject, object, and process start to dissolve. 8. Samadhi, absorption. The culmination of this path, samadhi, is complete integration. The mind becomes so clear, so calm, that the experiencer, the experience, and the object of meditation merge into a single luminous awareness. In samadhi, the practitioner realizes their true nature and perceives reality without distortion. Reflections on the eightfold path. The genius of the 8 limbs lies in their progressive structure. We start with the yamas and niyamas, ethical and personal foundations, ensuring we approach the spiritual path with integrity and clarity. We then engage asana and pranayama to harmonize body and breath. Pratyahara helps us moderate our sensory inputs, setting the stage for inward focus. Concentration, dharana, meditation, dhyana, and absorption, samadhi, guide us deeper into the subtle realms of consciousness. Each limb is interdependent. Ethical conduct supports inner peace. A well-prepared body and calm breath support concentration. Concentration leads to meditation, and meditation opens the door to samadhi. This synergy is crucial. Yoga is not a pick-and-choose buffet. It is an integrated path. In modern life, how can we integrate these principles? We might begin simply practicing kindness, being honest in our relationships, limiting consumption, and living more mindfully. We can set aside daily quiet time, attend to our posture, breathe consciously, and occasionally withdraw from the endless chatter of media. As our practice matures, we find ourselves naturally inclining toward deeper states of awareness, transforming our internal landscape in the process. Part 3. Vibhuti-pada, extraordinary abilities and the subtler dimensions of mind. The third chapter, Vibhuti-pada, dives into territory that can captivate the imagination, so-called siddhis, or extraordinary powers. Patanjali asserts that as one refines concentration, meditation, and absorption, certain abilities can unfold. These might include heightened intuition, the ability to understand the minds of others, even more esoteric powers. It's important to contextualize these powers. In the yogic tradition, siddhis are byproducts of spiritual progress, not the goal. If we become enthralled by them, using them to manipulate others, feed our ego, or prove our superiority, we risk losing sight of the true aim of yoga, liberation. These abilities are like flowers on the spiritual path, beautiful, but not the fruit we seek. Patanjali warns that attachment to siddhis can become a stumbling block. Their true purpose, if any, is to provide subtle confirmations of progress and to serve the greater good, not to inflate the practitioner's sense of self-importance. The Vibhuti-pada also introduces the concept of samyama, the integrated practice of dharana, concentration, dhyana, meditation, and samadhi, absorption, upon a chosen object or concept. It is through samyama that these subtle insights and abilities emerge. But again, the ultimate purpose is the refinement of perception, culminating in freedom, not the accumulation of psychic feats. In a modern context, one might interpret siddhis more metaphorically. As we mature spiritually, we may develop deep empathy, the capacity to calm a tense room with our presence, or the ability to understand complex problems intuitively. These abilities, while not as dramatic as levitation or telepathy, are subtle powers that arise from clarity, compassion, and mental discipline. Part 4. Kaivalya Pada, Liberation and the Highest Freedom. The final chapter, Kaivalya Pada, addresses the state of liberation, Kaivalya, which literally means aloofness or isolation of the pure consciousness from the confines of Prakriti. This isolation is not loneliness or nihilism. It is absolute freedom from the entanglements of the mind and matter. Patanjali describes the process by which the soul, Purusha, recognizes its independence from the shifting patterns of material nature. The end of the yogic journey is not annihilation, but a profound realization of one's true identity as pure awareness. In Kaivalya, the kleshas, afflictions, have been dissolved, the vrittis, fluctuations, are stilled, and the gunas, fundamental qualities of nature, sattva, rajas, tamas, settle into balance. The seer rests in their own nature. This state can be challenging to conceptualize. We are accustomed to defining ourselves by thoughts, feelings, roles, achievements. Liberation in the yogic sense means seeing through these layers, realizing that they are transitory, while the true self is eternal. It is a waking up from a dream of separateness and limitation. In practical terms, Kaivalya suggests a state where one lives fully but without attachment, fear, or compulsion. It is total presence, clarity, and peace. While few may claim to attain such a state permanently, the journey toward it brings incremental rewards, greater serenity, understanding, and compassion in everyday life. Philosophical and cultural background. To enrich our understanding, let's place the Yoga Sutras in its philosophical and cultural matrix. 1. Samkhya. Influence. Samkhya. Philosophy provides the metaphysical backbone of the Yoga Sutras. According to Samkhya, reality consists of Purusha, pure consciousness, and Prakriti, nature, matter, mind. The entanglement of Purusha with Prakriti creates the experience of individuality, mind, and world. The goal of yoga is to disentangle consciousness from nature, leading to Kaivalya. 2. Relation to Vedanta. Later traditions like Advaita Vedanta interpret reality as non-dual. Brahman is the single reality, and the world is a play of appearances. Though Patanjali does not expound non-dualism as explicitly as Vedanta, some commentators have harmonized the Yoga Sutras with non-dual insights. The relationship between Purusha and Prakriti can be seen as dualistic from one perspective, but some lineages interpret it more fluidly. 3. Buddhist parallels. The Yoga Sutras share similarities with Buddhist thought, especially in the emphasis on overcoming suffering through training the mind. Both highlight the role of ignorance in perpetuating suffering and advocate meditation as a path to clarity. Differences arise in metaphysical assumptions. Buddhism does not posit a permanent Purusha, self, while yoga does. 4. Commentarial traditions. The terse nature of the sutras invites commentary. Vyasa's commentary, often considered authoritative, clarifies Patanjali's ideas. Over centuries, numerous commentators, such as Vachaspati Mishra, Vijnanabh Bhikshu, and more recently modern scholars, have offered interpretations. This commentary tradition shows that the Yoga Sutras is not a static text. It is a living dialogue across time. 5. Integration with Hatha Yoga. Later yoga traditions, such as Hatha Yoga, circa 9th–15th centuries CE, introduced more elaborate physical practices, breathwork, and subtle body theories, chakras, nadis. While Patanjali's text does not mention these concepts explicitly, modern yoga often merges the Yoga Sutras' philosophical underpinnings with Hatha Yoga's methods. This synthesis is what many Western practitioners encounter today. Modern interpretations and applications. Why do the Yoga Sutras still matter? In our contemporary era, stress, anxiety, and uncertainty are widespread. The instructions Patanjali gives for understanding and training the mind are highly relevant to mental health, emotional resilience, and overall well-being. 1. Mindfulness and neuroscience. Modern science confirms that meditation changes brain structure and function. Techniques akin to dharana and dhyana can improve focus, emotional regulation, and even compassion. While Patanjali speaks from a spiritual vantage, his insights align with evidence-based practices in psychology and neuroscience. 2. Ethical guidance. The yamas and niyamas serve as a moral compass, guiding us toward more compassionate, authentic, and balanced living. In a world often dominated by consumerism and conflict, these principles encourage a thoughtful reconsideration of how we treat each other and the planet. 3. Emotional intelligence. By understanding vrittis and kleshas, we gain insight into why we suffer, because we misidentify with the fluctuations of our own minds. Recognizing patterns of fear, attachment, or anger allows us to respond more skillfully rather than react impulsively. This can improve relationships, workplaces, and communities. 4. Holistic health. Yoga, in its broadest sense, is a system for holistic health, physical, mental, and spiritual. While asana improves flexibility and strength, the full suite of practices nurtures resilience, clarity, and inner peace. We find that yoga, as Patanjali teaches, is not limited to exercise. It is a way of being. 5. Overcoming division. The Yoga Sutras remind us that at our core we share a fundamental consciousness that is pure, unchanging, and luminous. This insight can inspire greater empathy, tolerance, and unity in a world often fragmented by differences of race, religion, politics, and class. To fully enrich our understanding, let's take a closer look at some core elements: avidya, ignorance, and the kleshas. Avidya is considered the root of all suffering. It is not ignorance of factual information, but a fundamental misunderstanding of who we are. We mistake the transient personality, shaped by social conditioning, desires, fears, for our true self. This leads to the other kleshas. Asmita, ego, the sense of I-ness that identifies with thoughts, roles, and possessions. Raga, attachment, clinging to pleasurable experiences, craving their repetition. Dvesha, aversion, rejecting unpleasant experiences, breeding fear, anger, and avoidance. Abhinivesha, fear of death, a deep-seated clinging to life and terror of ceasing to exist. These afflictions distort perception. For example, asmita, egoism, might cause us to take offense easily, while raga and dvesha tug us between craving and avoidance. The path of yoga involves shining the light of awareness on these patterns. Once seen clearly, their grip loosens. Purusha and Prakriti. At the heart of the Yoga Sutras is the dualistic vision of Samkhya. Purusha, the silent witness, pure consciousness, unchanging, eternal. Prakriti, the dynamic, evolving field of nature, encompassing mind, ego, intellect, and the material world. It includes the three gunas: sattva, clarity, harmony; rajas, activity, passion; and tamas, inertia, darkness. Yoga aims for the realization that Purusha is distinct from Prakriti. When Purusha identifies with the body-mind complex, it suffers. When Purusha rests in its own nature, it attains freedom. Ishvara, the Lord, in the Yoga Sutras. Patanjali refers to Ishvara, a special kind of Purusha untouched by afflictions, karma, or desire. Ishvara is introduced as an object of devotion and focus, an ultimate teacher. The exact nature of Ishvara is debated. Some read it as a personal god, others as a symbol of the highest reality or pure consciousness. In practice, Ishvara pranidhana means trusting a higher principle, letting go of egoic willfulness, and aligning with a deeper order. Samskaras and vasanas, impressions and latent tendencies. The mind does not appear in a vacuum. Our present thoughts and behaviors are influenced by samskaras, subtle impressions left by past actions, and vasanas, latent tendencies shaping our character. Yoga practice, especially meditation, uncovers these patterns, allowing us to witness and gradually release them. This process can feel like weeding a garden. We uproot negative habits and cultivate wholesome qualities. Karma and rebirth. While not central in the Yoga Sutras, the concept of karma underlies much of the text's worldview. Actions leave samskaras, which influence future experiences. The wheel of birth, death, and rebirth continues as long as ignorance persists. Liberation Kaivalya ends this cycle, as the Purusha no longer identifies with the changing conditions of Prakriti. Even if one does not hold a literal belief in rebirth, the idea of karma can be understood psychologically. Our habits shape our future, and liberation arises from transforming these habits at their root. Practicing the teachings. Today. While some teachings may seem abstract, Patanjali's instructions are eminently practical when adapted thoughtfully. Here are a few ways to incorporate these insights into daily life. Out 1. Morning mindfulness. Begin the day with a brief meditation, focusing on breath awareness. This simple step helps set a calm tone, reducing reactivity throughout the day. 2. Applying the yamas and niyamas. Choose one principle, e.g. satya, truthfulness, and reflect on it for a week. How truthful are you in your speech and self-talk? Are there subtle areas where you bend truth? Becoming mindful of these areas can lead to more authentic living. 3. Movement with intention. If you practice asana, bring full awareness to bodily sensations and the breath. Avoid forcing postures. Aim for a stable, comfortable posture that prepares you for stillness. Over time, you'll find that asana is not just exercise, but a gateway to present moment awareness. 4. Breath breaks. During a stressful workday, pause to take a few slow, deliberate breaths. Notice how this small intervention shifts your mindset. Over time, pranayama helps manage stress, anxiety, and fatigue. 5. Digital pratyahara. We live in an age of constant sensory input. Consider a digital fast for an hour a day. Notice how freeing it feels to be less bombarded by stimulation. This fosters inner quiet and concentration. 6. Journaling for svadhyaya, self-study. Regularly write down your thoughts, emotions, and reactions. Identify patterns of attachment or aversion. This honest self-inquiry supports mental clarity and growth. 7. Aligning with Ishvarapranidhana. Whether you frame it as surrender to a higher power, nature's intelligence, or simply letting go of rigid control, practice releasing outcomes. Trust the process of life. This reduces anxiety and fosters peace. Overcoming common misconceptions. 1. Yoga is only asana. While asana is valuable, the Yoga Sutras present yoga as a holistic spiritual system. Meditation, ethics, breathwork, and mental training are equally important. 2. Yoga as a religion. The Yoga Sutras do not demand adherence to a particular faith. While it acknowledges Ishvara, yoga is best seen as a spiritual science, one that can be integrated into any religious tradition or none. 3. Samadhi as escapism. Samadhi does not mean running away from life. Rather, it is clarity that helps one engage life more wisely, with love and understanding. 4. Immediate results. Yoga is a gradual process. Patanjali emphasizes long-term, patient, persistent practice. Change occurs incrementally. The world faces unprecedented challenges: environmental crises, social injustice, mental health epidemics, political polarization. The Yoga Sutras might seem a distant whisper from an ancient past, yet their wisdom cuts through time. They remind us that lasting solutions require inner transformation. Ethical living, yamas and niyamas, mental clarity through meditation, and freedom from ego-driven conflict are precisely the qualities needed to address collective challenges with compassion and insight. In personal relationships, yoga's teachings encourage patience, understanding, and the release of blame. In business or leadership, qualities like honesty, non-violence, and equanimity foster healthier workplace cultures. In tackling issues like climate change, the principle of aparigraha, non-hoarding, prompts more sustainable consumption patterns. Moreover, modern practitioners can explore dialogue between yoga and other traditions. Buddhism's mindfulness practices, Christian contemplative prayer, Islamic Sufism's meditative techniques, Judaic mysticism's deep reflections, and secular mindfulness therapies in psychology. The Yoga Sutras can serve as a universal wellspring of wisdom, transcending religious and cultural boundaries. To further enrich our exploration, let's consider some thematic reflections that tie Patanjali's wisdom to our inner and outer lives. 1. Yoga and identity. Our identities often feel fixed. I am a teacher. I am a parent. I am anxious. I am successful. Yoga invites us to observe these labels as roles or mental conditions rather than as our essence. Through sustained practice, we discover a dimension of self that remains steady through life's ups and downs. This recognition can be profoundly liberating. 2. The art of letting go. Vairagya. We live in a society that prizes acquisition of wealth, status, experiences, yet constant craving leads to dissatisfaction. Vairagya, non-attachment, is not about dullness or defeatism. It's an art. It teaches us to participate in life fully, enjoy what comes, and release what goes. This graceful stance reduces anxiety, jealousy, and fear. 3. The inner landscape of meditation. Meditation is sometimes misunderstood as stopping all thoughts. In reality, it's about changing our relationship with thoughts. Instead of wrestling them, we observe them, allowing them to rise and fall without clinging. Over time, the mind settles, revealing deeper layers of peace and insight. 4. From knowledge to wisdom. Patanjali distinguishes between intellectual understanding and direct experience. We may read about yoga, watch lectures, and study philosophies. But true transformation arises from practice. The Yoga Sutras encourage personal experimentation, entering the silence of meditation, observing one's behavior and attachments. Only then does theory ripen into wisdom. 5. Yoga and social healing. Ethical principles like ahimsa and satya can have social implications. By practicing non-violence in thought, speech and action, we contribute to a more peaceful world. Truthfulness nurtures trust and honest dialogue. Non-stealing and non-possessiveness foster equitable resource distribution. While it might seem idealistic, change often starts with individuals embodying the values they wish to see in society. 6. Freedom in the midst of constraints. Kaivalya does not require living in a cave. It's an inner freedom that can exist even in challenging circumstances. The disciplined mind is not at the mercy of external conditions. Just as a lotus flower blooms in muddy water, spiritual freedom can emerge in the everyday realities of modern life. Desk jobs, family responsibilities, urban living. The key lies in consistent practice and the willingness to look within. 7. The universality of the path. Though rooted in an ancient Indian context, the Yoga Sutras speaks to universal human concerns. The nature of the mind, suffering, and the search for peace are not bound by geography or time. This universality makes the text accessible and valuable to anyone, regardless of cultural background or religious affiliation. Integrating yoga, philosophy, into daily activities. How can we translate these lofty principles into something tangible? Waking up. Before checking your phone or jumping out of bed, take a few breaths. Notice your state of mind. Set an intention for the day, perhaps to practice ahimsa in your interactions, or to remain aware of the breath during stressful moments. During work. Apply dharana by focusing on one task at a time. When distraction arises, gently return your attention to the task. Notice how often you crave stimulation or escape. This awareness itself is a step toward inner freedom. Eating mindfully. Mealtime can be an opportunity for pratyahara, sensory refinement. Chew slowly, savor each bite, and remain present. Notice how different this feels compared to hurried, mindless eating. This small shift nurtures appreciation and reduces impulsive consumption. Conflict resolution. When conflict arises, recall ahimsa and satya. Can you communicate honestly yet kindly? Observe if your ego tries to dominate the interaction. By bringing yogic principles into real-life tensions, you practice yoga off the mat. Evening reflection, svadhyaya. Before sleeping, reflect on your day. Did you live according to your values? Where did you get caught in negative patterns? This gentle self-inquiry fosters growth. Over time, you may see patterns of behavior more clearly and learn to respond differently. We have traversed a vast landscape, from Patanjali's historical context to the philosophical foundations of yoga, its practical path, the 8 limbs, the subtle powers and pitfalls of advanced practice, and the culminating vision of liberation. Along the way, we considered how these ancient teachings can be integrated into our modern lives, contributing to personal well-being, ethical living, and even social harmony. Yet it is worth noting that reading or hearing about the Yoga Sutras is only a beginning. Patanjali offers a map, not the destination. The text is not a dogma to be believed blindly, but a set of directions for inner exploration. Each individual's path will be unique, shaped by personal history, temperament, and the challenges of daily life. The promise of the Yoga Sutras is that there is a way out of suffering, a method to calm the restless mind, and a possibility to know ourselves more deeply and truly. This promise resonates across centuries, cultures, and philosophies because it addresses the core human predicament, the longing for peace, meaning, and freedom. We return to the question posed at the outset. What does it mean to be free? Patanjali's answer is profound. Freedom lies not in rearranging external circumstances, but in understanding the workings of our own consciousness. It is an inner liberation from fear, attachment, and ignorance. Such freedom shines as peace, clarity, and love. A state in which one sees life as it is without distortion and responds to it from a place of wisdom and compassion. Thank you for joining in this exploration of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. May these timeless teachings inspire you to look within with courage and curiosity. If you found value here, consider sharing these insights or discussing them with someone who may also benefit. The path of yoga grows richer when we learn and reflect together. Remember, the journey is ongoing. The teachings come alive through practice, patience, and self-honesty. May you walk forward with greater peace, understanding, and freedom, carrying the ancient wisdom into the unfolding present.